Hi there, and welcome to our latest procurement spotlight video, where, of course, Fleur and I randomly pick 3 articles each from the world of procurement. 2 of those articles are from right here in the UK, and one from overseas in a totally unscripted approach. Fleur, how you doing?
I'm good. It's been a long day, and I can't believe it when we're recording this, it is the 31st of July, which means July is nearly over. So I'm a bit, it's a bit, where's the year going? It's going
Yeah, indeed.
crazy.
Indeed. 2025 is just passing us by in the blink of an eye, it seems,
I
doesn't it?
still feel like I'm in January and February, so I'm not quite sure like how I've reached July, August, to be honest.
Are you still writing 2024 on everything as well? Because I am still on this on occasions.
Yeah, it's going too quick, going too quick.
It is, and as you say, end of July, and we are now well within what is traditionally seen as the summer holiday season here in the UK. And you and I have both been away, not together, I must add. Fleur, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. However, it's been a while since we've done a spotlight video, Fleur, and yeah, it's been a pretty busy old time of recent. Do you want to let our YouTube followers know what we've been up to?
Yeah, and I think that because we've been so busy, I think that's how suddenly it's got to July and I suddenly realized like how did we get here? And I think when you think back to what we've done, that's probably why we're sort of like, wow, where's these months going? But I guess like some really notable things to mention is that we were actually this is in June, so this is the end of June, but that seems like yesterday, although it was nearly a month ago or was a month ago. We were in Manchester for Elevate 2025, which was hosted by, and I'll try and get this right, the Procurement Plug, which is founded by Annalisa Noel, who was a guest speaker on our podcast. So that was a really great day of speakers in which both of us were on the panels talking around our experiences in procurement. I think, Chris, you did a session on, was it stakeholders?
Yeah, stakeholder engagement, looking at
Yeah.
internal, external, and different approaches. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really good day, and it was really good to support Annalisa in her events. And then, Chris, you went and presented at the SIPS Birmingham and Coventry branch session, which was held, and that was focusing on the Procurement Act. So, again, your favourite topic. And you talked all around about how it can be optimised when supporting SMEs. So that was a really good session. I think you got some really great feedback and engagement from those, didn't you?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Yeah, and just reflecting on that a moment, Fleur, as well. It was great to actually meet up on
Yeah.
both of those events, both Elevate and the Sips Birmingham Commentary event.
Listeners of the podcast and followers of this channel.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's a few events that we've been to. We've also got now a dedicated page on LinkedIn. So we did have a group, but we've transferred that into like a proper LinkedIn page. So if you want to search for a procurement podcast, the reform rundown and follow our group, no page. So it's gonna get confusing. Um, We're just like sharing like insights to our days, what we're doing, what's coming up on the podcast, recapping on different things that we've done previously. So yeah, come and follow us over on LinkedIn. So we're really excited to have like a proper home on LinkedIn.
Looking all professional and smart, isn't it, Fleur? Definitely.
We are looking very professional over there. And also, we are continuing to record our podcast episodes. So I know on YouTube we are still catching up on some of our previous ones. So you'll get the latest ones in a bit. But we've recently done one with Mo Williams from L&Q Group, which was a really great conversation. Some of the screenshots that we've got of that recording is quite fun. We're all just laughing. So it was a really good episode. So that will be coming to YouTube. So keep an eye out for that. But if not, if you want to listen to it earlier, go over to Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Music so you can listen to them. Yeah. So I think that's probably about everything. There's quite a lot there. And we've got some exciting things coming up, which we'll be able to talk about at some point.
Yeah, we certainly will. I think that's enough for anybody, isn't it, Fleur? So yeah, as you say, pretty busy time for us. But yeah, right. let's get the show back on the road, so to speak, and kick off with our first article. And if you would be so kind, Flo, do you want to go with your first one?
Okay. So this is what happens when it's unscripted. It just puts people on the spot.
Sorry.
But like Blue Peter style is what okay, so my first article is all about English devolution and community empowerment bill. So there's been a lot about this recently, the bill now, but then previous months it's been talked about devolution and local government reorganisation. So there's quite a lot that's been going on about this. But this was a post that was shared. Actually, I've got a couple of things that form into this group, this sort of section. The first one was a post that was shared on LinkedIn and was published by Tracker Intelligence, which is a system that was developed by BIP Solutions. So it's focusing around sharing about how the English devolution and community empowerment bill has been introduced in Parliament. So some of these things, like as I've been going through it, it rings very much like as to how like the Procurement Act started. Started as a bill, then went through, and then gets to where it is. So I think that's sort of like a similar trajectory that it's on. So this bill focuses on like decentralising power and rebalance prosperity and empower directly elected mayors and local leaders to enable them to shape housing, transport, and economic development through local growth plans. Wow, that was a mouthful for me to say. But basically it's around like devolution and like devolving the local and pushing powers down to the local authorities and enabling them to group themselves by elected mayors and stuff like that, which has been talked about for the past year or so, I think, in terms of devolution. So yeah, it's going to enable local authorities to have greater opportunities to partner, deliver, and innovate. In addition, so this is like a two-in-one really. There was also another article that I found on this, which was published by VWV, which talked about, again, the bill as presented. And apparently this bill has 338 pages. It's got 79 clauses and 31 schedules. So it sounds even bigger than the Procurement Act, right? It's got like
A bit
30.
late night reading there. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And it talks around how it understands that much of the detailed implementation will be set out in secondary legislation. So whilst there is some further information at the moment, there will be more to come, which has got to go through further scrutiny and obviously government and stuff like that. So again, it sounds very similar to like the different stages like the Procurement Act had to go through. So there will be more to come on it. And it talks around how the bill has introduced a structured devolution framework, which means that there will be consistent powers and functions and duties will apply to like they're starting to talk about like having strategic authorities as a standard, but then there may be more formal routes that these authorities can like take and go through, which they can then take on greater responsibilities. It also highlights that in the article that the bill also gives the Secretary of State significant powers to push forward with local government reorganisation and the creation of mayoral strategic authorities, even if there are local objections to doing this. So that's quite interesting. But I think it's clear that this is like, whilst we've had quite a lot about devolution, local government reorganisation, and now we've got like this new bill that's going through, that there's still a lot to come in relation to devolution and LGR, and especially in relation to public sector procurement. I think it's gonna like could quite have like an impact in terms of how local authorities are structured, what their requirements are going forwards, if they're grouping, collaboration, all this type of thing. But as always, and I know we say this a lot with them, this really is one to watch out for because I think this is going to have a big impact on like procurement and their requirements going forwards and how local authorities work. So that was my first article. Or
Excellent.
two
Yeah.
articles in
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. And just kind of like reflecting on that there. And, I think you're absolutely right. These aren't kind of decisions or procedures that take place and are then implemented overnight. That the actual timescale on this, I would imagine, is a lengthy one. And as you say, yet another one for us to keep an eye on. And, we're purely speculating, or at least I am at this moment in time when you think about what you've mentioned there. And, essentially what we're looking at is kind of like providing more power within local regions off the back of this devolution approach. And then by the same token, essentially, I suppose, really grouping a lot of local authorities within the region together. So to your point, What does that mean for the future of those organisations? What does that mean for those organisations that may end up getting grouped together from a procurement perspective? Lots more, perhaps maybe, as you refer to, collaborative, regional collaborative opportunities. Perhaps maybe larger value and contracts and procurement opportunities because of the potential grouping together of local authorities. Again, time will tell, but it may well go some way to changing the landscape of public procurement here in the UK for sure.
Yeah, and I guess so obviously, whilst we've got the bill now sort of going through, there's already been a lot in terms of devolution and from other things like there's the priority program of those authorities. I think is it about six of them or something like that that were on the priority program. So they should be like having their new structures in place, I believe, like what is it, March next year? Because obviously
Yeah,
that's like push back the elections and stuff like that. So yeah, there's lots to come, I think, in terms of devolution.
indeed, indeed. Excellent article. Yeah, no, definitely, really, really interesting. Okay, so for myself, my first article comes from the Wiltshire Times, which would you believe is from right here in the UK, and the title of said article is "Wiltshire Council Suppliers Have to Prove Green Credentials."
Mhm.
So this is a relatively short article, but Fleur, you'd expect nothing less from me when I say I've done a bit more research
There
and
we go.
background research around this
Taking a
one.
short article, made it into like a newspaper.
Absolutely, it's what we do best, right? Okay, so Wiltshire Council is set to tighten its procurement rules to ensure suppliers that participate in their public procurement opportunities demonstrate stronger environmental credentials. This is in reaction to a challenge from the Wiltshire Climate Alliance, who have urged the council to enhance its key word here, Fleur, sustainability standards. So let's look at this from a Wiltshire Council perspective and then from a prospective supplier point of view. So the council is analysing high emission contracts and working with providers to reduce their carbon footprint, which of course is no surprise given the UK's plans and progress to reach net zero by 2050 and milestone targets within the years leading up to 2050. This subsequently ties in nicely with the council's broader climate delivery plan of 2025, aiming to embed sustainability across all of their procurement activities. And the council are clearly, you know, as the article suggests, leading lights in this space because Wiltshire Council's efforts were nationally recognised at the Eddie Net Zero Awards, and the council also ranks within the top 10 nationally for climate action, according to Climate Emergency UK. I'm sure you know you'll agree, Flo. That's all very, very, very impressive. So, what does that mean for prospective suppliers then bidding for opportunities with the council? Well, amongst other things, suppliers will need to show how they support the council's net zero goals and also gather. My understanding, at least, is that the council are developing a new set of supply requirements in this regard that they'll need to be on the lookout for too. So lots of, as I say, lots of good work, positive news around Wiltshire Council and what they're doing in this regard. And clearly, as I've just mentioned, a leading light and perhaps maybe an exemplar to follow for other councils across the UK. Anyway, I know our listeners love my fun facts. Actually, in truth, only one person has told me that, but that's enough encouragement for me.
What yourself?
So I've got a fun fact about Wiltshire for you. Are you ready, Fleur?
Go on. Was it yourself that said that you liked your fun facts?
I live in my own head. Everybody knows that. So way back in 1774, Joseph Presley, working in the town of Carlin, conducted experiments that led to the discovery of oxygen. He used candles and mercury to isolate gas, marking a major milestone in the history of science. So, I guess as someone who has a lot of hot air, I've got a lot to be thankful for when it comes to Wiltshire. Thought you'd like
Oh,
that
dear,
one.
you've done it again with the fun facts. But That's an interesting sort of article in terms of what they're looking to do. Obviously, it fits well like with the Procurement Act and being able to consider more climate and sustainability areas. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, what you got next then, Fleur?
So, are we moving international?
I think so. Yeah, I'm happy with that. If you want to do that, yeah, go for
Right. I might get some of these currencies. I've had to do like a bit of quick conversion and what type of currencies are these?
it.
And yeah, we'll just see what this is. But okay, my second article or sort of news in terms of international is linked to India. So this was around how there, and I've seen some articles around how there's now a new India-UK trade pact, which is meant to unlock access to UK public procurement market worth 122 billion US dollars. So it's an article that was published by KNN India, and it focused on this obviously new India UK trade pact. It's known as the India UK Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, or CETA for short. And the article states that it will unlock significant opportunities in public procurement and will provide Indian companies access to a non-discriminatory market in the UK. So obviously very topical in terms of
Yeah.
public procurement. Um, and it means that there is a commitment to treat Indian suppliers on an equal footing under the social value procurement regime. So it talks around how there is an opportunity for UK suppliers that by the signing of it, I don't know if they call it a CETA or CETA
Okay.
by India, which will mean there's an estimated 114 US dollars billion public procurement open, like available. It's apparently the second type of this agreement that India has signed following the UWE agreement in 2022.
Mhm.
But there are some issues that have sort of been highlighted in relation to it. So we'll just have a talk about those in a minute.
Okay.
And this mainly relates to the fact that India has retained its procurement thresholds below which foreign bidders remain excluded, which then doesn't align with like the ability to sort of have that access to public procurement.
Okay.
So this is where the currencies sort of come in and it gets a bit confusing, but I'll try. So it talked around how for goods and services, the Indian threshold has been set at 55 million Indian rupee, which was about £474,000. So you
Okay.
can align it to like our goods and services sort of similar
Yeah.
thresholds. And then which compared to, oh, so that's their threshold. Oh, so their threshold was 474,000. That was it. Which compared to ours, so UK one is roughly about 16 million Indian rupee, which is roughly 138,000. And in the case of works, both have the threshold of 600,000 in, no, 600. See, I told you there's too many zeros here. 600 million Indian rupee, which is just over 500 million. No, 5 million pounds. Oh, God, I've just got numbers. I've just got zeros. It's crazy. 600 million Indian rupee, which is just over 5 million. So obviously, like the works threshold. So
Sure.
they've got like different thresholds, and therefore it gets a bit tricky in terms of when it wants to exclude, like being able to have access to it. Um, so these are obviously different thresholds in values in relation to and there's also different thresholds in relation to the India UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, which
Mhm.
sets a much higher threshold of 2.5 billion Indian rupee, which is approximately 21.5 million, which is used to restrict procurement access to a limited number of central government entities. So there's quite a lot of differences in terms of the thresholds. It goes on to detail that under this CETA agreement, India has secured a complete exemption for its preferential procurement policy for micro, small, and medium enterprises. So obviously, given a focus towards those.
Yeah. Right.
And it details that UK suppliers can participate as class two local suppliers if at least 20% of a product or service originates from the UK, where Indian suppliers with more than 50% domestic content will continue with their class one status. So it's quite interesting in terms of how there's an agreement to potentially enable more like opportunities between India and UK around public procurement. But then there's some that disalign or don't align very well with thresholds or exemptions, or if you're micro and small and stuff like that. So yeah, it might be one that we sort of have to do a bit more looking into, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I think kind of like you mentioned there, the intention behind it, the
Intention's
idea.
good. I think there might be like, yeah, things that need to be ironed out, maybe.
Yeah, like for example, alignment around the thresholds as well. Yeah, as you were going through there, and you were talking about obviously the different deals and what have you. And if I remember rightly, you mentioned like the UAE there as an example as well. Did you get that right, Fleur? Yeah, you
Where it's
mentioned
the where is it? Uh, yeah, it's the India UAE Comprehensive Economic
India,
Partnership.
UAE.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then I immediately, and it's the same with all kind of like international trade deals and the implications that it'll have as a ripple effect on procurement and stuff. But you kind of think about, like organisations such as the World Trade Organization, who obviously look to reduce barriers and encourage trade between nations, and but by removing said barriers, etc. It's kind of like, again, how it ties in with the bigger agenda, you
Yeah.
know in relation to that too. But yeah, as you say, it's intentions behind it, and looking to support SMEs, etc. This is all good stuff, but probably some further work and improvements to follow, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry if I got any of those numbers wrong. There's a lot of there's a
You
lot of
did a
zeros
much
and
better
everything.
job than what I would have done going through that. No, for sure, for sure. Okie dokie then. So I'm going to moving on and sticking with the
Where are
international
you going then?
article.
We've got in.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are we going? India to
Do you know what'd be really cool? And I'm
do a
going off on
map.
a tangent here. Yes,
Where are we
exactly
going?
that.
India to.
So we are going. I'm taking us over to the West African country of Nigeria, where, for this article, as the headline suggests, the federal government are to prioritise Nigerian-made products in public procurement. This article is coming from the Leadership publication over in Nigeria. So, what's all this about then? So, federal government of Nigeria has signed a memorandum of understanding between the Bureau of Public Procurement and the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure to essentially promote Nigerian-made products in public procurement, which is a positive move to simply improve and grow the national economy, of course. The Memorandum of Understanding aims to integrate National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure, locally developed technologies, so things such as tractors, drones, solar systems, etc., into the Nigeria Open Contracting Portal. Would you believe, Fleur, public procurement, which it accounts for nearly a third of national spending, and as a result of this new direction, it will now favour certified local innovations. Like anywhere else in the world, when it comes to procurement, Fleur, I think certified is the key word here, in terms of that. The Bureau of Public Procurement Director General, a Dr. Adebowale Adokan, called it a pipeline from Nigeria innovation to national transformation. So, as you'd imagine, Fleur, like all good plans, there is an implementation even strategy. And the highlights and key features of which include things such as an integration with the Nigeria Open Contracting Portal, which one would suggest is a given based on this article. A revised procurement threshold, here we go again, Fleur, which will be interesting to see once it is clarified, and we'll keep our eyes out on that, of course. The introduction of a technical working committee, which will no doubt take the lead role on identifying needs and specification writing. And what about this, Flood? So, something which I think should certainly be celebrated by us procurement folk. There is an initiative where over 7,000 procurement professionals trained under the Sustainable Procurement Environmental and Social Standards Enhancement in order to support this shift. So I think that's a really positive move there. And just looking ahead, just to close this one out, Fleur, the National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure has developed 50 plus market ready products and has attracted over $2 billion of foreign investment. And those forthcoming projects include renewable energy park in the Kebbi state and EV electronic hubs in Abja. Of course, this has got full government backing and is aligned to the nation's Renewed Hope agenda, which was established, if my research is correct, back in 2023. As ever, Fleur, and I think you'll like this one. Bit of a fun fact. So, you are, of course, a bit of a movie goer. Nigeria is home to Nollywood, the second largest film industry in the world by volume, producing
Wow.
thousands of movies annually, second only to India's Bollywood.
Did not know that. Interesting.
Neither did I until I looked into it. So, what do you think, Fred, about that particular article there coming out of Nigeria? Positive steps, would you say?
Really positive. I like the fact about the amount of people they're going to train as well and get up to speed on it also. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Incredible, definitely. So, last article, Fleur, for you?
So we back in the UK now.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine it was about the launch of the new NHS social value playbook, which I think has been I'm just looking at it now. It was published on, I think, the 14th of July. So this was something that was published directly by the NHS on their website. So yeah, it's all about a new social value playbook. So social value, as we know, is very topical in terms of the Procurement Act at the moment, which obviously for some parts of NHS requirements will be linked to the Procurement Act. So you can probably see why they're sort of wanting to refresh and update their social value playbook.
Hmm.
So it sort of started off with a bit around how, like, looking back in terms of what they've done so previously. So in 2022, the NHS England published its net zero and social value guidance, which was aimed at supporting NHS organisations to unlock additional social, economic, and environmental benefits through procurement. And then they've got this social value playbook, which sets out practical steps at each stage of the procurement or commissioning cycle. And obviously, in 2025, the social value model was updated to align with the government's missions and ensure contracting authorities can implement the new procurement policy statement. So this playbook acknowledges and updates the model, and it also caters for like the transition period from February this year to October 2025, which was all linked to the PPNs and those changes in dates. I think it's around like targets and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So this playbook aligns with the 10-year health plan that has also been published, and there is a focus on sustainability and the reduction of health inequalities in the plan, which further emphasises the role of NHS organisations as social and economic anchor institutions. It details that, and the playbook highlights the positive impact that social value can have on health inequalities and outcomes, and setting examples for common areas of spend. So there was quite a few key messages that it sort of tried to highlight as its bit of introduction. It talks about how social value should be considered early in the planning process, which is something that we always talk about. Obviously, you want to make sure it's like thought of early on. It talks around how pre-market engagement is important to ensure proportionality. Again, things that we have talked about so many times around having that pre-market engagement, understand from the suppliers what could be considered, and proportionality. Yeah, we could talk about that over and over again. Social value can include core themes such as fighting climate change. But this last one was also important. It links on to other parts of the Procurement Act around how having a social value KPI is important to assuring and measuring delivery. So it's not just about them telling you, yeah, I can do this XYZ social value. They're actually going to be putting in place like social value KPIs to make sure that you are delivering what you say you're going to deliver, and measuring performance against that. It talks around how the social value model has refreshed the objectives and key themes to align with 5 key missions. And again, this is due to the updated model, like we're talking around the PPN, so PPN 02, which replaces PPN 0620 from and the target. So the themes around kickstarting economic growth, make Britain a clean energy superpower, take back our streets, break down barriers to opportunities, and build an NHS for the future, or fit for the future. So yeah, I think this social value like playbook and the refresh by the NHS is very timely given like the Procurement Act the amount that gets talked around social value and the Procurement Act, and the PPNs and the focus that social value is going to have. And I really like the fact that they're looking at potentially having KPIs, so making sure that they do get what they should be getting, in terms of what people have said they will do for social value. So yeah, I thought this was a very interesting one and links to a lot of conversations that we have on a regular basis and what we've talked on in terms of podcast episodes around, yeah, social value, KPIs, Procurement Act, proportionality, could carry on.
So it's all those common themes coming to the fore yet again, isn't it, Fleur? And you know, I think it's excellent to see that that's obviously been produced within the NHS, and it'll be interesting to see if the rest of the sector, you know, adopts a similar sort of approach. You know, and you know, if I was within the sector right now, I'd be taking a look at what the NHS has produced in relation to this playbook and seeing whether or not there's some best practice that I would, you know, say, like for example, I was situated in a local authority, I'd look at that and say, is there anything from that I could look to adopt within my local authority? For sure. I mean, you know, as you've covered off there, you know, the introduction of the Procurement Act and this, you know, increased focus on social value, it is a real opportunity to create KPIs around social value, so you can, you know, hold suppliers' feet to the fire in terms of social value promises / commitments that they've made in their tender submission over the life of the contract, you know, with that successful supplier. So it's a really interesting area, isn't it, social value? And I think, you know, if
A lot of
you're
talk about
someone,
that a lot of the time.
there is, and I do wonder, and it leads in very nicely to my final article, whether or not, you know, social value will be seen as a discipline by way of an actual profession and a full-time profession, you know, and one that's growing in the years to come because of things like, as you've just discussed in that article. You know,
Yeah.
really interesting, very topical, as you say. And I've shown my hand a little bit there, haven't I, in terms of the final article that I've got for us for today, for this spotlight. And as you say, back in the UK, and more specifically in Scotland, where via Deadline News, it's been recently reported that a social value advisor has been appointed by leading procurement experts. So, as I say, in Scotland, the Scottish Procurement Alliance has recently appointed Amanda Gould as its new social value advisor to strengthen its commitment to embedding social value within its procurement practices. The article makes reference to Amanda's experience in relation to community benefits and HR, focusing on employability. I think she's going to be very busy, that's for sure, overseeing Scottish Procurement Alliance community benefit funds, which to date has delivered over 5.9 million in social value and supported over 35,000 people across 116 community groups since its inception, which I believe was back in 2017. I think, and as I understand it, when it comes to social value, and Fleur, you and I, as you say, have done many a podcast episode around this, but ultimately, procurement needs to get better at developing meaningful, long-term social value strategies in this regard. Again, ties in really nicely with your final article just now. Considering this, I love the piece within the article that states a driver behind Amanda's appointment, and that was to help clarify the difference between community benefits and social value, especially for smaller housing associations, which, of course, you know, I myself have prior experience working within. And how about this? For insight, Amanda herself has highlighted successful initiatives like the Be Well program by Berwickshire Housing Association, which offers mental health support to tenants as a social value outcome, as a shining example. And I've got a stat for you as well, Fleur. It's understood that currently Scottish Procurement Alliance has over 700 live projects that are worth 1.1 billion. So that's a fair bit of social value opportunities to go after, one would suspect. Yeah, I suppose really just in closing on this article, I think, Fleur, you know, I'm sure you would join me in wishing Amanda all the best in her new role, particularly as this article suggests she needs to show a move tackling social isolation, addressing cost of living, fuel poverty, food insecurity, which, of course, as we know and well reported, is a difficult time for many. I think what this article does is clearly shows the importance and, forgive the pun for a moment, value that social value can bring when it comes to procurement. So that's quite a somber but realistic view, and obviously the challenge and role and responsibility that Amanda's got now. But just kind of perhaps maybe put a bit more of a positive and a happy spin on this. Just to close out my last fact for today for you is volunteering in Scotland generates over 2.3 billion pound annually in social and economic value. This, would you believe, places Scotland amongst the top contributors per capita, which, especially considering its population size, is really impressive.
That's a great article to finish on. I love the fact that we both came to social value at the end as well,
Right.
without really even knowing. Yeah, that just shows the amount that social value is being talked about in general, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And its importance is growing, like constantly.
Yeah, absolutely, and no doubt many more conversations around social value in our episodes and YouTube videos, I'm sure, as we've already
Yeah.
said. Definitely.
So I think that's all of our articles, isn't it?
It is, and I'm out of facts as well. So yeah, I think we are
Good,
now
he's
out
out
of
of
time
facts.
as
There we
well.
go. We've done it.
Yeah, just to close out then, I think, Fleur.
Yeah, so thank you all for joining us in this latest Spotlight video. It would be great if you could give it a like and subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you over with us on YouTube and grow our procurement community. If you have any topics or news that you would like us to discuss as part of future videos, let us know in the comments below. But yeah, that's all for today, and we will see you in the next one.